Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Euro 2024. T-minus, actually tells you T-minus 2 days, 9 hours, 53 minutes.
I'm really concerned for you that you're not even sure when the tournament starts.
No. I wanted to be precise, James. It says on the homepage as you log into Euro 2024 Fantasy.
Gives you a countdown.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
Helpful for people like me that...
you miss deadlines. Yeah,
sure. Indeed. And there's plenty of them to miss in this game, isn't there?
It's not as complicated as it. I know people get a bit of, make subs every day, but it's not quite like that.
Now that we're 72 hours out, Max, I decided to listen to your intro to Euro 2024 with Clayton last week.
Okay, well done.
I'm up to speed with the rules and the point scoring and so on and so on. And today we're going to be doing a watch list of players that might help me finalise my squad. Although I've got most players in, I think.
Is it? Okay.
I don't know, to be honest with you.
We'll be talking final decisions on Friday, and we'll have that out in plenty of time for you before the first game Friday night. Yeah, today I wanted to go through personnel from all of the 24 teams. It's going to be a fairly rapid rundown. We're not going to spend like 10 minutes on 24 teams, obviously not, and there's no need to do so, by the way. But I was quite keen to wait till now, so we've got all the information out of the way. Last friendlies were played last night, involving teams that have qualified. Includes Portugal, beat Ireland. Nico, well done. And as I just said, a couple of tap-ins for Ronaldo last night. The first of which was definitely not a tap-in. Peak Ronaldo, actually. And it's that, isn't it? Waiting to the last minute. That's the last thing in your mind. Oh, my God, I've just seen Ronaldo score a couple of great goals. Do I want to force him in? And he's probably more secure of minutes now than he was, ironically, at the World Cup 18 months ago. Here's a stat for you on Ronaldo. Suj. Ronaldo has now scored more goals for Portugal in his 30s than Pele scored for Brazil.
In total?
In total.
Yeah, I mean, he is an output machine. You can't argue with his stats at all. I suppose when we go through the squads, which we'll do in group order, I guess.
Yeah, I think
it's the easiest thing to do. My main takeaway from any of the content that I've consumed is pick a chip strategy, and then you kind of how you maneuver your squad.
Don't pick your team and then your strategy. No,
it's very much down to your chip strategy. I at the moment am thinking about a limitless in match week 3 and wildcarding for the quarterfinals.
That's because you listened to the podcast with Clayton, right?
No, I've listened to a few, to be fair. I think the boys on FPL Wire were talking about that potential strategy. I think for me, I'm looking at it as I can build a squad for game week 1 and 2 that I think will last, and I can save the wild card, because I'd like to attack some teams in the last 16 that maybe I wouldn't for longer. Like you did mention it yourselves as well. Like you could end up with a mix mash there where you can steam in and then wild card straight out. And also with that strategy, it's also got a very easy abort plan, which is if I decide that I need the wild card in match week 2, just use the wild card in match week 2.
It's true. You
the opposite applies for you, right? You were going to wild card in 2, right? And limitless in 3, or the other way around?
No, same as what you just said. So, yeah, probably limitless 3.
Yep.
And then wild card quarterfinal.
Right, okay.
But yes, you certainly, if I walked out of match day 1 and I've got 5 injuries, for example.
Just pull the trigger.
I'm just going to use the wild card as a free hit, probably.
So, so I'm thinking my strategy is going to be around that as it stands at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we covered strategy quite a bit on the pod I did with Clayton last week, and I know there's other people who certainly favour sort of wildcard 2, limitless 3, or the other way round, using the chips in the group stage, and ordinarily I'd be quite happy with that. My big against that is I just don't like the match day 2 fixtures, with the fact that the majority of the roughest fixtures for the best teams land in match day 2. And this is also a tournament where, it's only 8 teams get eliminated in the group stage, right? So, if England draw with Denmark, it's fine if they deal with the others. If Portugal draw with Turkey, it's fine if they deal with the others. And that goes on, France against the Netherlands, etc. as well. So, yeah, that's my plan. I've not really deviated from that. So the plan will be to use essentially match day 3 as a free hit, the last 16 as a free hit, and the wild card for the end.
Okie dokie. Should we go through the teams, players? You kind of helped by putting together a cheeky little watch list here, James, that does cover a lot of the more interesting talent.
Yeah, it's not exhaustive. Like if there's a player I don't mention here that you particularly like or have spotted something, doesn't mean you can't pick them. But I wanted to kind of, it's kind of leads into the intro pod that we did last week as well. For those who are just picking up now and going, well, I haven't got time to research 24 teams, is to kind of give an overview of that. So if you've done more detailed work on a particular team or something, crack on, no problem at all. But I think I want to do it in group order as well, like you said, to also give an understanding of what teams are likely
who versus who
as well,
what the matchups might be. Yep.
So Group A, Germany obviously
Deutschland,
clear favourites, and we think we know the whole German lineup. We think has probably been leaked over the last 24 hours or so. It doesn't throw up too many surprises from what people were expecting. But if you're looking at Leroy Sané, for example, we don't think he's going to start. Certainly be involved as a substitute, almost certainly. So I think there's a few to pick out from Germany, and there'll be a number of people who want to go with the treble up, particularly maybe those on our strategy as well, Suj, so Scotland and Hungary. Even if you are using Limitless 2, Wildcard 3, again, Scotland opening game, it's reasonable to want to target, although I suspect Friday night as an opening game probably won't be high scoring. We said last week, like, I don't think Germany will destroy Scotland stupidly.
My triple up is going to potentially be triple defence, James.
I don't hate
I really
that.
want to go blanket defence because I'm trying to think. It's such a short format game to really give yourself a chance of doing something crazy. I'm thinking just Rudiger, Tar, Mittelstadt as a blanket defence, and also they play early enough that I can move one or two of them on, because my other defenders, I've got Mailer and Cancelo in mind at the moment, who are okay as well. So I could easily move two on, but I'm thinking tripling up, but just blanket.
I don't hate that. It's worth remembering, I think Hungary have had some good results against the best nations over the last couple of years. Struggle a little bit more when perhaps there's an expectation on them to lead a game. But we saw them destroy England 4-0. We've also seen them give Germany problems, both in that Nations League, that same group, and also at the last European Championship. They so nearly beat them as well. And Hungary are stronger now than they were going into the last Euros, where they really were classified as complete also-rans in a ridiculous group that included Portugal and France as well. If you are going to go for a treble up defensively of one particular team, Germany's one of the ones that you would certainly consider, though. And it has to be those three players, really, because Joshua Kimmich is classified as a midfielder. Mm-hmm. So Tar's 4.5 I really like as an option. Maximilian Mittelstadt 4.0, there is no reason for anybody not to have him. Yep. His first pick, basically. You'll see the team as well, so if there is an alarm, oh shit, he's not playing, you can obviously change it. But the only reason really to consider Tar is if you're going double defensive Germany, and the only reason I think really to consider Rudiger is if you're going treble Germany defensively. But on that basis, all fine. Jamal Musiala at 8.5 will certainly get some attention in midfield. I really like Florian Wirtz at $1 million cheaper, who's had an outstanding season for Bayer Leverkusen, and those two will kind of float as like 10s in behind the front man who will drop in. Ilkay Gundogan will be allowed to get involved, 7.0. I have read some reports over the last couple of days that a lot of German fans don't want him in the team, which is interesting because I think we love him as a footballer.
Yeah, and but maybe age catching up.
Actually, despite what they achieved, it was a miss for Manchester City at certain points this season. But he's captain as well, so there's no concern from that perspective. Robert Andrich, we believe, is going to start. He is 5.0. And there aren't a lot of them going around, as you'll find during the course of this. There's one that's way more obvious than that, I think. But if you need a couple in there, then certainly Andrich is a certain starter, as it looks like. And Kai Havertz is 7.5 as a forward.
Yep.
And in comparison to the prices of many of the other forwards playing for the top nations, that's as good as you're going to get in terms of cheap forward for a nation that's going to start and is one of the favourites in the tournament. So that Havertz had a very good season for Arsenal, got better as it went on. He will drop in short. It is rather more false 9 than 9, but still at that price, that should certainly be considered.
One to look at.
I think people who don't go with Havertz is probably because they're going with 3 more powerful players. That's it, rather than necessarily picking alternatives at a similar price.
I've not looked at it because I've got
your strategy. Yeah.
Well, I've got 3 more powerful forwards, and I've got the triple defence. So I've got two reasons there not to be with Kai Havertz. What about our neighbours up on the north, James? Scotland.
Was he going to go up in the west or the east?
No, the north, the bordering on the north. We've got a few interesting options there. Maybe they're gonna. It's a difficult group though.
They're going to find it tough because I think Hungary have proven themselves to be a decent side. But again, Scotland's the sort of game that Hungary might struggle in a little bit more. And Switzerland are kind of the epitome of the consistency that will get out of a group.
But that's it.
Well, you say that. Knocked France out in the last tournament on penalties.
That's true.
There's a couple from Scotland be considered, but I think considering most are going to have German coverage, most won't go there. But if Grant Hanley starts, he's 4.0. If you've got a particular flavour for Scottish defensive, Scott McTominay had a great record in the qualifiers.
He did.
He's 6.5.
8 and 7 or something like that.
It's 7 goals, I think, in
7 and
qualifying.
8. Yeah.
And he actually does, he box crashes as he does for Manchester United. He actually plays, arguably, a deeper position for Scotland than what people, I think, realise. But he's still got license to go and get involved, and there's a reliance on him to obviously contribute. That feels a little expensive to me, though, 6.5. Yeah. Che Adams, 5.5, might get the nod up front. Again, the benefit with Scotland is you will see the team. If you do need an enabling forward, I think that's okay. But there is also a suggestion that Scotland may pick different forwards for different games.
Yeah, it's enabler, full stop. That's all it is.
So I think you'll largely overlook that. For Hungary, there's also a 4.0 defender who's almost certain to start. That's Adam Lang. So I would prefer that if you wanted to go down that route. Dennis De Bruyne is a 4.0 goalkeeper. We don't think he'll start.
Right, okay.
But it's not improbable that he might. And bearing in mind they're 2 o'clock on the Saturday, if there's some sort of leak goes round.
Oh, no.
You do tend to get these international lineups much earlier and in advance than you get club lineups, and I think the main reason for that is rather than you've got journalists covering Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, whatever, gets to this bit and they're all covering the national team, right? So if anybody's got the sources and then shares the information,
round, yeah.
and that obviously equates to so many countries as well.
Makes sense.
The outstanding Hungarian player to consider is Dominik Szoboszlai.
7 million, you think he's worth it?
See, that feels expensive, but I think it should be considered. I think particularly as well, those who are on the strategy of, say, Limitless 2 and then a wild card later on will look at Hungary's fixtures against Switzerland and then Scotland, and you miss the Germany game, and that then makes it more attractive. He's centre of everything for them, so more advanced role than what you would commonly see him for Liverpool. He's on all the set plays. He runs the football match for them. When there's a responsibility on them to run it, it all goes through him to the extent he'll go and get the ball off the back four and then ping balls diagonally, etc. But in the attacking phases, he'll be in and around all the important moments. So if people want to go with Dominik Szoboszlai, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
For Switzerland, Jan Sommer's had an outstanding season, and he's 5.0. The problem with the goalkeepers in this is it's difficult to find good options because in a lot of the cases, you'll have a keeper who's 5, but there's like a defender at 4.5.
Right, okay.
But somewhere you may need to make that decision where you go, well, I'd prefer to go with a goalkeeper rather than a defender.
I've gone with 2 5 million goalkeepers at the moment. I don't like it. I'd rather get rid of the second 5 million keeper and go 4.5. I've got Casteels and I've got Pickford.
I don't mind that as a spread, and particularly what you're doing, say with the treble
Germany
defence, you're obviously only leaving yourself 2 defensive decisions. And and what you said you were thinking sort of Cancelo and Mailer. So then if you want, England and Belgium are going to be, certainly in the group stage, you would think probably 2 of the better defensive teams. If you want coverage of it, then yeah, you are forcing yourself to look at the keeper route.
Yep.
We'll talk some enablers from those 2 teams. But even in this Switzerland case, Fabian Schär's 4.5.
Good price.
We're not certain that he'll start, believe it or not. But Ricardo Rodriguez will. He's the same price, 4.5. Does have a rocket on a left foot of him, but he's almost certainly going to play left-sided centre-back. But if you wanted a Swiss enabling one, then I think it's probably Rodriguez at 4.5. And they fall into play because of our likely strategy, Suj, where in 1 it's Hungary and in 2 it's Scotland. So then that pair of fixtures looks okay. So I think Rodriguez is a real consideration for me. I've seen Sheridan Shaqiri in a number of teams. Yes, he's still going, Suj. He's 6.5. I would add a couple of caveats on that. The first is fine, like he'll definitely start and he's probably on the pens.
Yep.
But the manager stressed concern about him playing twice in 4 days, and also real concern about his fitness levels going on sort of beyond 60 minutes in a match.
Okay.
But if you specifically want a Swiss attacker, and I would like to have one, it probably is him. I'll probably overlook it though. I think Germany, you would fancy to win this group. I wouldn't be surprised if Hungary finish above Switzerland.
Yeah, I'd probably got... Yeah, I don't know actually. I think it's quite tight between Hungary and Switzerland.
That first game on Saturday will probably define it.
Yeah, indeed. Group B.
Group B's obviously got 3 very established nations in it, plus Albania. Spain will be favourites within it. There is a 4.5 defender who we're almost certain is going to start for Spain. That's Robin Lenormand. But under our strategy, Suj, it's Croatia and Italy.
Yeah, I'm not interested in... I've only got one Spain player at the moment, that's Rodri, and I'm not even sure why I have him.
There is a little bit of speculation that he might have picked up a problem. Was a rumour going around last night. At time of recording, that's unconfirmed. He's 6.5. You know what he is. You know what his pass completion is going to be. You know if it was Sky Fantasy Football, you'd be owning him. Under this format, probably less interesting. Ball recoveries will be there, but obviously Spain will have a lot of the ball.
Yeah, it's not that many ball recoveries, I don't think.
A few in the midfield area to consider that are differentials. We finally have a price for Pedri, who's 7.0, wasn't listed as a player with a price earlier in the week. Nico Williams is an absolute flying machine out wide if he starts 7.0. Lamine Yamal is 6.5, and that's probably the only one under consideration for me under my strategy. He will be, Suj, 17 the day before the final.
Whew. Is he a guaranteed starter?
I think he'll start.
Okay.
Guaranteed, no.
Okay.
Do I think he'll start? Yes. He's obviously, I mean, to say he's been fast-tracked into this would be an understatement. He is 16 years of age, and he's an incredible talent. So at 6.5, that's a possible interesting one. But yeah, keep an eye on Spanish news over the next couple of days or so. Neither Williams or Yamal are certainties. Alvaro Morata up front, 8.5. You know he's captain.
I didn't, James.
Yeah, he is.
I know you had a laugh about at his expense last week with Clayton. But Morata, Yamal, the problem is forwards, and I've gone heavy hitting up there.
I don't know how I picked Morata over Havertz.
Yeah, no way. Absolutely no way. It's particularly with the first 2 fixtures.
For Croatia, I think they're one of the ones that really fall into, because of their performance at recent tournaments, i.e. semi-finalists and finalists in the last 2 World Cups. Players are probably priced a little bit higher than they should be, which is understandable. Josko Vardio's in at 5.5.
Sure. With
the group they've got, you're not really touching it. Would you look at him if you're limitless in match day 2? Yeah, definitely, against Albania. Luka Modric, 7.5, doesn't overly appeal.
No, he got put into my auto-pick team when I registered, and I just thought, it's too much money for Luka Modric.
No, I don't think so. Lovren Mayer is a player to keep an eye on. He's 7.5 as well, but I think with Spain in the first game, it's probably you'll come back and have a second look at Croatia, maybe going into match day 2. For Italy, they obviously start with Albania, which probably makes them the most appealing. Both fullbacks / wingbacks, because we're not certain if Italy are going to play a back 3 or a back 4, right. And they might change during the tournament. It was largely a back 4 until Spalletti decided he wanted to try a back 3 in March, and it's not clear what the plan is at the moment. But either way, Giovanni Di Lorenzo, 5.5, who was great in UCL Fantasy in Napoli, and Federico Di Marco, play on the other side, is 0.5 cheaper. They're both interesting. I think for those on the strategy of, say, Wildcard 2, Limitless 3, or vice versa, there's every case to consider double Italian defence. Alessandro Buongiorno, which is a great name, sounds like he should play for France. It's 4.5 and probably starts, but with those 2 fullbacks, there really is the potential for offensive stuff as well. Jorginho is 5.0.
He's in for me at the moment.
Yeah, and I completely understand that. I had a chat with Harry Daniels yesterday, who you know as FPL Harry, and he said to me, and I'll finish his sentence before he finishes. He said, "Is there anyone else to consider other than Jorginho at that price?" I said, no. But since that conversation, it's been confirmed that Andrić will start for Germany, but I don't see how you pick it over Jorginho. He's probably on the pens as well.
Yeah, I think Jorginho is a good shout.
So I think if you want an enabler, I can't really give you a good reason not to go with Jorginho unless there's something that suddenly suggests he's not going to start. And we think that he will. His price makes a lot of other players redundant from the game. Yep. I think. So there's every chance I won't go with him, by the way, but possibly because I don't need to. But should I need an enabler, that's where I'm going. Up front, it's not certain who will start at the moment.
I thought I'd seen Harry online say he's going with Skamaka.
I don't think it's a certainty.
Yeah.
He started the last friendly. Matteo Retegui, which I'm probably mispronouncing, started the friendly before, and he might be a better fit for what they're doing. He's only 6.0. So I'm not recommending anyone goes and buys that. But again, we might hit Friday, and it might be sources from Italy tell us which one's going to start. And if again, you're on that strategy, sort of wildcard 2, limitless 3, and you go, well, I want to go in at 6.0 so I can power in more offensive, defensive, and midfield players. You know, go Cancelo rather than a cheaper one, for example. I think he possibly comes into play under that particular strategy. For Albania, Armando Broja is in at 6.0. Fellow forward Ray Minaj might even be more interesting at the same price. Realistically, you're not going to go there. Thomas Strakosha probably will start in goal, is 4.0. But there are other 4.0s you can consider. But if you're desperate to go down that route, by all means do so. I think it's a shame for them. I don't think they're terrible.
No.
But that group is terrible.
Yeah, it's difficult.
And they'll struggle to get out of it. This could be one tournament too far for Croatia. Maybe. It's becoming an aging squad.
Yeah.
Ivan Perisic just got himself fit. And he's in the squad. It's unbelievable.
How?
Did his ACL in like October or something.
Oh, wow.
It's incredible. And we know the quality. I mean, the midfield is going to be exactly what you know. Modric, Brozovic and Kovacic. They keep the ball for fun. They're an outstanding team, but it is getting on to the older side now. Spalletti's a very good manager.
When you look at the age of Spain, for example, that's all teenagers, man, with the likes of Pedri.
Well, there's a breakthrough and a mix between your Moratas and your Maus, and your Nico Williams is relatively young as well.
You don't have that same batch of youth necessarily with the Croatians then.
Yeah. This feels like the group where one of the big ones could go.
Yep.
Like, say if Italy didn't beat Albania on Saturday, you suddenly would panic, wouldn't you? Mm. So... yeah, that could be a group where one of the big ones possibly goes.
What about Group C, which is England's group? There's a lot of interest in the English players, as you'd expect. But what about the others? Let's go through the others first, shall we?
Slovenia have an excellent shot-stopping goalkeeper in Jan Oblak, but I don't think you're paying 5.0 for it. Adam Cherin in midfield is a player possibly to keep an eye on. He's the same price as Jorginho, and this is the problem. You think, you kind of want to be forced to look into this sort of player. There's no need to. Benjamin Sesko up front is a super talent. He's 7.0. It has been reported over the last couple of days he's agreed to stay on with Red Bull Leipzig for another year. He had been heavily linked with Arsenal and a few others as well. We think he's going to stay, but probably only for one more year. For Denmark, I know you're interested in Joachim Mæhle, Suj.
Yeah,
5.5.
Maybe that's just because he's done well for me in the past.
Yeah, I mean, there is a historic one, and that's why he's got that price, because he was in nearly everybody's team at the last European Championships. I got you an alternative from the same team for $1 million cheaper, though, Suj. Alexander Barr.
Wing-back.
4.5 will play right wing-back, almost certainly.
Let's have a punt. Let's do it.
It's not 100%. And I would say, by the way, neither is Mæhle. And obviously with Mæhle, he can cover either side. So if Barr didn't start, Mæhle's going to go to the right-hand side. We really think Alexander Barr will start right wing-back. I don't hate Pierre-Emile Højbjerg at 5.5.
Okay.
You might remember my comments from the last Euros, Suj, about Højbjerg, watching him play for Denmark. Who's this Denmark midfielder?
Better than what you get for Spurs.
Better than the one that plays for Tottenham, basically. Yeah, so he's got far more license to go. And if you look, he does tend to register with an attacking return sort of every 3 or 4 for Denmark, actually. Yeah. So I don't hate that at 5.5 if you need an enabler of a player that you know. And obviously, again, look, Slovenia first fixture. It might be one that appeals. Rasmus Højlund is 7.5.
I'd still go with Havertz.
You won't.
I wouldn't. But if I had that price, that amount of money, and maybe even Morata over that, to be honest with you.
As Serbia play England first, I think it's probably difficult to be considering any of the defensive assets. In their last friendly, they beat Sweden 3-0 away,
right,
which is a pretty impressive result. Dusan Vlahovic, who everybody wanted when he left Fiorentina, hasn't really torn up trees at Juventus since, is at 7.5, and Alexander Mitrovic is 7.0. I spoke to one of our patrons, Victor, yesterday, who's Swedish, and he said they were shit. He said despite beating Sweden 3-0, he didn't think much of them. He said Mitrovic was an absolute handful, though.
Really?
We know what he is.
Yeah.
What's interesting is ordinarily they play with Tadic behind, but didn't play with Tadic against Sweden. And I wonder if the result might mean that they stick with that for England, or it will be one up front with probably Tadic behind. Under that circumstance, I would expect probably Mitrovic to play over Vlahovic, actually. So Mitrovic at 7 million, if that's your thing. But I think with the way that the fixture's fallen at the start, you're probably going to overlook Q1-0 Serbia. But in any case, 1-0 Serbia. It'll probably be something like that if they beat us. For England, yes, there's lots. So Jordan Pickford at 5.
He's in for me at the moment.
Fine. The reports over the last 48 hours would suggest at this moment that Trent is going to start in midfield as Declan Rice's partner. He is 5.5. I wonder if we would be debating that if he was 5.5 at Liverpool.
No, definitely not. I strangely have got Declan Rice in my team, though. But then, obviously, Trent's down as a midfielder. Yeah, at 6.5, I've gone with Declan Rice. Do you know what swayed it for me? Seeing him swinging in corners.
Yeah, we was discussing that yesterday, actually, on a call I had with a few patrons about him being on set plays. But I still wouldn't pick that. Yeah,
I'm gonna do it just for
nostalgia.
Fun. Yeah, why not? I like the kid. He's gonna be ball recoveries is gonna be there.
Yes,
as a potential. He likes to chip in with a little bit more of an attacking threat. I think it's not as good for him from an attacking point of view with Trent alongside him as it would be if maybe it was Conor Gallagher. But I still think he'll get forward a little bit and. I fancy a bit of Declan Rice at 6.5. Yeah,
Trent's the one I'm going to give some real thought to. I think my impression earlier this week was that I thought he probably wouldn't start. The journalists, and they're using the same term, he's in pole position. Basically, as long as he performs well in training, it's going to be his. That's how it stands. But it's certainly not 100%. Mark Gay, I think he's close to 100% for a start. He is 4.5. So that's your cheapest way into the back line. If it suddenly looked like, for whatever reason, Lewis Dunk was going to play, he's 4.0. So I think Pickford at 5, Trent at 5.5, Gay at 4.5. Across that, there's a case to say you want some of it. But then the more I think about it, I think Serbia are half decent.
One's enough.
And Denmark could be a challenge in 2.
One's enough.
I might even end up with no England.
Defensive.
You're not going to have something offensively. It's worth saying the ownership across the offensive guys probably suggests that you want something. So Jude Bellingham's in at 9.5. Phil Foden 9.0. Bukayo Saka 8.5. I said on Monday's pod that I thought Anthony Gordon would start. There is speculation going across around overnight that suggests that it probably will be Foden on the left, and I think that's what most people are expecting. I wouldn't chance Foden, though. Bellingham, we know, will play. Saka looked really happy in training yesterday. There was a few clips going about. Saka 8.5, interesting. The only thing with Saka, I'd think, is you're probably not getting the 90, whereas for the million more, you probably will out of Jude. Harry Kane is 11.
He's in for me. Just because of the captaincy, there's going to be so many people sticking the armband on him if other people fail.
There is this. So I think of the games on Sunday, Kane will be the most popular for captaincy. I think that's absolutely spot on to say.
He can just go off, can Kane. Penalties as well.
But I don't see the game going off.
You never know. I just think Harry Kane is going to have such high ownership. And on top of that, when you add the armband, it's going to get even worse. I'm going with him. Not even going to risk it.
Harry's a 50-50 for me at the moment. And that goes for Jude as well. It goes for Mark Gay. It goes for Trent. And they're all like 50-50 for me at the moment. Anthony Gordon, by the way, didn't have a price at the start of the week. He does now 7.5. But that feels less relevant this morning than based on what I was saying a couple of days ago. Cole Palmer's also in at 7.5. I think one of those two will be interesting as the tournament develops.
Yep. Group D.
So for Poland, Nikola Zawuski in midfield, 5.5, same price as Højbjerg, might be one to keep an eye on. Robert Lewandowski is 9.5, has been ruled out of the first game against the Netherlands on Sunday. It was
too expensive at 9.5 anyway. Even more expensive when you can't even play the first game.
And they've also got a couple of other doubts in the forward positions as well. It means at the moment that Krzysztof Piatek will probably start up front at 6.0. Are you going to go there?
Nope.
Moving on. Bart Verbruggen has been confirmed as the Netherlands' number one starter. He is in at 4.5. That's interesting. A lot of people are put off because game 2 is France. Denzel Dumfries is 5.5. There is a lot of talk about Jeremy Frimpong at 5.5. I told Harry when I spoke to him yesterday I'd send everyone to him for questions on Frimpong because he's absolutely sick of them. I haven't fielded any yet. We had a discussion on a call we had yesterday, and the majority of us were in agreement that we weren't going to go down.
Okay.
He was excellent. He was given man of the match by the people there in the Netherlands last friendly, and he played as the right winger. He was played as a wing back for Leverkusen. He describes himself as largely more of a defensive wing back. But he played as right at the front three in the last friendly, and he really impressed. It might have got him a start.
Right.
But it's a gamble. Now, under this format, knowing that you've got subs to bring on, can you take that gamble and hope that this out-of-position player can potentially do very well for you if he starts? Yes, you can. I'm not convinced that he will, though.
Okay.
Ronald Koeman has spoken about playing him in front of Denzel Dumfries. Dumfries will almost certainly play. And Dumfries was great at the last Euros.
He was.
But if Frimpong's in front of him, that's not going to make Dumfries interesting anymore, is it? So, yeah, I think because of Poland's forward issues as well, as just mentioned, there is a keenness to have Dutch defensive, I think, for that first game. It's more likely to be Verbruggen for me, I think. Xavi Simons, 7.0, is very interesting. Memphis Depay, a lot will still go through him, is 7.5. And he has been good for the Dutch in previous tournaments gone by, but their strength is defensively. They've arguably got the Dutch possibly the best group of centre-backs in the tournament.
Okay.
But it don't
Van Dijk.
So you got Van Dijk,
De Jong.
Nathan Ake, Stefan de Vrij, Mickey van der Ven.
Yep.
But I don't think the rest of the team is that strong, and they've lost Frankie de Jong over the last 24 hours, has had to pull out as well. They've called Ian Maatsen back into the squad.
Okay.
But we think Daley Blind will play left wing back. He's like 36.
Yeah, I was going to say he feels a bit old.
Yeah. Talking of old players, Kamil Grosicki is still in the Poland squad, and I'm sure he's in his 50s.
Mad.
The Dutch feel like another one to me that if they don't do well on Sunday, and they should do against Poland, but if they don't, I think they might be in danger.
Okay.
That's because I quite like what I've seen of Austria.
I've got Sabitzer in my team at the moment. My logic was that if a lot of people are tipping Austria to be dark horses,
it's just me.
Okay. Who's their best player most likely to be the one that does anything? And Sabitzer's the one for me. So I thought, let's go with it, because if they do well, inevitably it's highly likely that he will do well. So I've gone with Sabitzer. He's going to be on set pieces as well, isn't he?
He loves a shot. You saw that again in the Champions League final as well. I don't hate it, but you are starting with France. It does feel like one you could possibly come back to in game 2.
Okay.
When they play Poland, if you want to. But I also don't think that's where you're going to use your transfer. Unfortunately, as much as I quite like them, like they're probably going to get beat by France at the weekend, then they're chasing, right? And that just makes things a lot more difficult. But I mean, to give you an example of why I think they're under the radar, it's the group. They've beaten Portugal, they've beaten Germany in friendlies over the last year. And Turkey are being really well rated. People like what they're seeing from them. Austria beat them 6-1 a few months ago, right? They do have injuries as well. Obviously, David Alaba's not going to the tournament. A cheaper one maybe to consider in midfield is perhaps a player to have a little deeper look at is Patrick Wimmer. He's 5.5. This is $1 million cheaper than Sabitzer. Michael Gregorich will likely play up front. He's 6.5. But it's very difficult to pick them when they're starting with the best team in the tournament, basically. They may not prove to be, Nico, by the end of the tournament. Talking of the French. So, Theo Hernandez, 5.5.
Very popular.
Yep, he will be. They are Upamecano at 5.0 and Jules Koundé at the same price. We both think are going to start.
Okay. No room for Saliba.
We don't think he's going to start. We think Ibrahima Konate was probably going to get a nod under Saliba. There's a lot of people going to hear that and think that's mad. But
we were talking about Saliba being the best centre-back in the world at the end of last season over the course of the 12 months.
I don't quite know about that, but
But it'd be in the conversation. If you were having a conversation about who was the best centre-back last year.
Do I think he should play for France on the outside? Yes. I mean, Upamecano hasn't had a great season for Bayern Munich, and insiders who talk about them keep repeating that, but Deschamps knows him and relies upon him. He scored, I think he's been playing in the French team for sort of 4 years or so now. Jules Koundé will probably play right back. As I said, the word is that Konate will probably get the nod over Saliba. That's not to say that's definitive, but I think Upamecano and Koundé are probably going to start. So you go there, wouldn't you? There isn't anything I like in the midfield for France, and one of the reasons for that is a lot of the attacking players are all in as forwards. So from kind of cheapest going up, Marcus Thuram is 7.0. He might start. That could be really interesting. Olivier Giroud has been such a great foil for the attacking French players. Yeah, I really wanted
to buy him, but I can't.
It's not certain he'll start. Again, 8.0.
I need certainty, I'm afraid, at that price.
Ousmane Dembele probably will start. He's 8.0. Antoine Griezmann is 9.0. And then Mbappe's 11.
Essential.
I don't like the word, Suj.
I know.
And he isn't. And
I think it's just that ridiculous 75% ownership or whatever it's got up to now.
I'll tell you why he isn't. The biggest thing of all is this. Lukaku might be the best captaincy on the day that Mbappe plays in day one. What are you laughing for, Nico? You want to come and hit the mic and share your feeling?
77% ownership versus Slovakia.
Oh, that's what Belgium have got. France obviously start with this Austria team that I'm saying are decent.
Okay. Yeah.
So it is a case to go against. Plus as well, if you want your airplane tickets and you want to win this game, doing exactly the same thing as everybody else is not going to win it for you. And that's not to suggest you should go against someone like Mbappe, but you will want to somewhere, and there is a case for that. To look at the days and go, right, well, I can still go with Kane, Lukaku, Ronaldo as my captains in the last 3 days, go them as a front three, or go to Havertz as a night one captaincy, and you've got 2 other kind of rogue picks from the midfield area or even defensive ones, maybe even like an Italy player defensively as a captaincy on day 2. No, I'm not going to sit here and say essential. I also will not sit here and advise anyone not to
go there because 77%, man.
People go, they've got the Dutch. That's tough. Well, the French played the Dutch in qualifying, and Mbappe scored twice against them in both games, home and away. So you start putting that sort of thing in front of you. I don't need to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he'll probably go in. But by default, all those other attacking French players. So is it right that we'd only start with
One.
The favourites, 1 or 2 maybe.
I've only got one in.
You're
and
saying
Mbappe.
just Mbappe. Questionable.
Group
As
E.
said, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dutch have a bad result on Sunday. I think they might be in trouble.
Okay. But
I don't think they have a bad result on Sunday. Group E, Belgium are runaway favourites in this. I spoke to our good friend Kylian Mates again, and he reaffirms.
Still very anti-Romania. Well, he's not anti-Romania.
Look,
he's anti-picking Romanian players potentially for Euro.
They are going to be difficult to beat because their defensive record is good.
Okay.
They're going to largely rely on trying to win games of football 1-0. If you are trying to think of who could be a Greece in this year's tournament, well, remarkably, it could be them because they are so focused on what they're doing defensively. Obviously featured Radu Dragusin is the most well-known defensively. There are some defensive players who are in at the bottom price.
This is it. They're enablers.
Because of the group, shouldn't necessarily be overlooked. So Nikosor Banshu and Andrei Ratiu are both 4.0. But the one I may consider is Horatio Moldovan. He is a 4.0 goalkeeper, and he is going to start.
Okay.
And I think of the 4.0 keepers, if you want one, he might be the way to go. So they start with Ukraine on Monday.
Right.
But second game's Belgium. I think that's right, isn't it? Second game is Belgium.
I'll double check for you.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure it is. But then also, unless you pick a goalkeeper from Group F, then this guy is your kind of backup to your first choice one. And if your first choice one doesn't return, you can throw him in. That's probably where you're going to land. I don't mind him as a 4.0 pick because they are okay defensively, which will be off-putting for those who want to consider some of the offensive ones. I've seen Nikolai Stanchu in a few teams. He's 4.5. Denis Dragus, who play up front, is 4.5. Florinel Koeman will almost likely start 6.0. Stanchu's the one that people are looking at. I mean, you're not going to break from these brilliant forwards in the game, I think, to go with Dragus, for example.
No.
Stanchu I've seen in a few teams, but the word coming directly from my Romanian brilliant journalist, Kylian, is they are terrible going forward and will be relying on trying to scrape through.
Okay.
They're the sort of team that could qualify with a
3
1-0, a 0-0.
Portugal.
Well, they could get absolutely yes. A reminder, Nico, that you won the Euros with 190-minute victory against a Wales. Is that even a country? Oh no! Don't
it's
say
a principality.
That. I'm joking. It's a principality. Yeah. I'm only joking to the Welsh guys. No, I don't.
Not to the Portuguese.
they could scrape through with like a 1-0, a 0-0, and get absolutely destroyed by Belgium, like 4-0 or something. They could go through with like 1 goal scored.
And then when it comes to the last 16, you're going to want to potentially maybe target them depending on who they put up.
But I think they'll probably get well beat by Ukraine.
So is there anyone in the
Monday.
Ukraine squad then?
Yeah, there definitely is. And I think it's really straightforward. So goalkeeper, it's not certain, but we think Andrei Lunin will play in goal. Is 4.5.
He's getting a lot of attention, isn't he?
And he obviously played so much for Real Madrid during the Champions League run and during Thibaut Courtois' injury. So Lunin in goal at 4.5, considering the strength of this group as well. And Ukraine play Belgium last, right? Mm-hmm. So under our strategy, that's interesting. I think we all know from game week 28 specifically, Ilya Zabani of Bournemouth, who probably is their best defender as well, is in at 4.5. If you just want something reliable and you're happy with different goalkeepers or there's concern over Lunin, I think that can be considered. Georgi Sudakov is 6.5 and should be very seriously considered.
Midfielder?
He's their number 10, basically. He's still at Shakhtar Donetsk.
But listed as a midfielder in this.
He is a midfielder, yes.
Okay.
He's the team's number 10. He's at Shakhtar Donetsk. He's a player that's been on my radar for a number of months because he's been linked with my football club. He's also been linked with Chelsea, but who hasn't? And it might be that there's a lot of interest in him after this tournament. He's still relatively young. I mean, he's 21 still. A lot will go through him, Suj.
Let me ask you a question then, and you'll understand why in a second. Sudakov or Sabitzer?
Sudakov by miles for me.
Sudakov or Rodri?
Sudakov.
And Sudakov or Declan Rice?
Sudakov.
Okay, so I've got 3 6.5 million rated midfielders in my current draft.
Just Sudakov off with your other choices.
You think that good, yeah?
I think because the way it breaks down as well under my strategy, that you're playing playing Romania and Slovakia, and I think this is a fairly talented team. Remember, they did struggle in the playoffs to get over the line, but they were also in a qualifying group with England and Italy, right? So they were always going to land in the playoffs. They navigated it. They've got some decent talented players. I'd certainly prefer Sudakov over Mudryk, who's more expensive. I think that's a really interesting one.
Okay,
and
I'll have a cheeky look at that.
For those being aware, he's engaging with the FPL Twitter community.
Is he?
Yep, I saw him respond to... He's got about 1,900 followers on Twitter, Suj, and he was responding to a few FPL accounts last night who hadn't tagged him, by the way, who were like, yeah, I'm going with Sudakov in my team. And he's generally responding with like the muscle emoji and stuff like that. I presume it's him, but he does also have only 1,900 followers, which also feels a bit weird. So I'm not certain that it is him.
Nah, I think it is.
I think it is as well.
I think it is. He's in my team now, James. I've just put him in instead of Rodri. There we go.
I only don't go with him, I think, if I'm powering in other stuff.
Okay.
He's a likely for me.
Cool.
And I prefer that over Artem Dovbyk, who I know a number are looking at as well. Really interesting player, had a really good season. He's 7.5. And again, I think particularly if you're on this strategy of running through sort of game weeks 1 and 2, it can be considered as an alternative to Havertz at the same price. If I wanted to consider an alternative to Havertz at the same price, it'd probably be the 1.
Right.
But I do prefer to go with Sudakov in the midfield area, and I think that's because of the sheer volume of forwards you can pick as opposed to the volume of midfielders. You've got to remember all the Salahs, if you will. Obviously, he's not involved in this, but the majority of them are forwards rather than midfielders. Saka and Foden are two rare ones against that, and that's part why the ownership of them is so high.
Okay.
Clayton's boy, and I say Clayton's boy, is the only one really to consider from Slovakia, having done a bit of looking at them last night.
Ignoring Belgium?
Well, we'll come back onto them. They're probably a little bit better than I thought, maybe. There is certainly hope that they can get out of this group, as there will be for all the teams. But there isn't anything I like enough offensively, and of course they do start with the toughest game in Belgium. But Clayton has told me he's definitely going with David Hanko.
Okay.
It's 4.5, 5 attacking returns, I believe, in qualifying, and he's staying through the friendly since. He's staying amongst the attacking returns. So if that's your thing, you want a 4.5 offensive enabler, and you're not bothered that they're playing Belgium in the first game and you think Belgium are past it or whatever, David Hanko at 4.5 is your guy. If he was 4.0, he'd be in a lot of teams. So other than that, I can't really make a case for much else from Slovakia, though. For Belgium, it's possibly a case to say there's the most here to consider of any team.
Priced well, that's why.
We now know that Cohen Casteels will start in goal.
He's in for me.
He's 5.0, so that's killed your Matt Sells 4.0 dream. Timothy Castagne is 5.0, and I think could be considered. It's almost certainly going to play at right back. Artef Tiat is going to play at left back, and he's 4.5.
Okay.
That's good. Wout Fass, we're pretty confident is going to play as well, and he's 4.0.
Old fudge. Sideshow Bob's
Sideshow Bob 2 is in, I think. I mean, if you think he's going to play and their whole group is, let's say, weak.
It's the easiest group.
And whatever your strategy, I can't really see how you, if you think he's going to play at 4.0, unless you go, right, well, I want to go with one of them fullbacks because it's more offensively and I don't need to drop to that, then fine. I think the closer we get, the more people will have something Belgium defensive here. Yeah,
the easiest option for me is just keeper.
In midfield, Kevin De Bruyne is 9.5. Needs no further discourse, I don't think.
I mean, he's always going to be a great option, but too expensive for me.
Leandro Trossard is 8.0.
I looked at his price. He always seems to chip in, even though not being overly fashionable.
I think that saving is worth it.
I agree with you, yeah.
There is a case to say, though, that you could make another 2 million saving and look at Yuri Tielemans, who scored twice against England in March.
Yeah, don't mind it.
And for an alternative to Jorginho, we think Oral Mangala will start at 5.0. And then you've got Lukaku up front.
Lukaku is in for me at the moment. And I may even captain him first day over Mbappe. But again, that depends on what's happened to my captains the 2 previous days. So I wouldn't go so far as to say that would be locked in. But I've got 2 Belgium at the moment, Castells and Lukaku.
On match day 2, Serge, you're looking at my plan, aren't you? I don't have it in front of me. Who plays on the same day as Belgium? I think Belgium's second game is next Saturday or Sunday. Oh, it's the Saturday.
Well,
do they play the same
Saturday
day as
the 22nd. Portugal play Turkey.
Yeah.
Georgia play Czech Republic. And Belgium play Romania.
So here's the problem with Lukaku. You could certainly make a case that on Lukaku's first game, you can captain Mbappe, and on his second one, you can captain Ronaldo, or Bruno Fernandes even.
Correct.
Or an alternative Belgian player like Trossard or Kevin De Bruyne.
But he's also still a good asset at £9 million, whether you captain him or not.
Yeah, I think this is why the ownership isn't as high or not. His goal-scoring record, look, he's clearly not at the peak that he was 5-6 years or so ago. But I think he might even be captain, maybe. He's clearly going to play up front. His goals record for Belgium is astonishing. It's brilliant. It's comparable with any 9. Don't mention Ronaldo, Nico, because it doesn't count as different.
He's a 7.
But Lukaku's goal record for Belgium is nuts. And you know there's good creative players behind it to create the chances. I think there's a little bit of a stigma on the last tournament where he wasn't fully fit, and then in the final group game, he needed to beat Croatia to go through, and he missed like 2 massive chances, didn't he? But I don't think you should judge that then on now. He's still an important player.
I think he's still a good asset. I'm going to start with him. I'm pretty sure. I don't see any situation where I don't.
I think if you don't, it's a certainty you start with Mbappe.
Yep.
And if you don't go Mbappe, it's probably a certainty you start with Lukaku. On that basis, Mbappe is going to get the favouritism. This is the big thing here. There's a kind of 4 or 5 really good forward options. If you go Lukaku and Mbappe, you are taking one away from a potential captaincy. That said, it's 5 days worth. By the time it gets to Lukaku on day 4, hopefully you've locked in a nice
Harry
return.
Kane hat-trick.
Otherwise, we're all doing shit anyway, right?
Correct. Let's talk about Group F, James. Not a lot here.
Turkey could surprise. Yeah. They've got a few really good creative players who I think are worth looking at. Hakan Çalhanoğlu was voted by The Athletic as Player of the Year in Serie A last season. I can't profess to watch a lot of it. Redefined his position as more of a deeper lying player, 6.5, but he's still involved with a lot. And there's a couple of younger players to really keep an eye on, but the problem will be fitting them both in. Arda Güler is only 19, 6.0.
Okay.
Was bought by Real Madrid either last summer or the year before. Got a couple of appearances towards the end of the season, equipped himself very well. And Barış Yilmaz at the same price is also potentially interesting. He's classified as a forward. I don't think he'll go in there. And the challenge for Turkey will be probably fitting those 3 players in, because they're all technical players. So what are you going to be like off the ball? They might end up playing in wider positions. They really like to push their fullbacks on. So it might be that they could start in wider roles and then get them more central. Yilmaz also can play as the central forward as well. But I found them, considering they hadn't been in a tournament for a while and largely should be unfancied, I just found when I compared these players with players that other nations, I still preferred others.
Yep.
Like Sudakov, for example. So I think I'm probably overlooking Turkey, and I'm not sure I want to.
None in my squad.
I think if they played Portugal last, I'd be way more interested rather than them playing Portugal in the second game. But it's a good opening game against Georgia.
Anyone from Georgia? I really wanted Kvaratskhelia.
Who? Who?
Yeah, him.
Kvaratskhelia.
Kvaratskhelia, yeah.
Your man. I mean, 7.0 is too much, isn't it?
It is. If it was 6 or 6.5, we'd be having a conversation here.
I think that's a proper piss take.
It's half to a million too much.
You know why it is, don't you? Right? You got to remember, a lot of people playing this format have played UCL Fantasy.
Yeah, and he was good.
And he was great in it, right? Particularly 2 years ago when Napoli had the run to the quarterfinals. You've seen so many teams. In fact, many of us had Napoli treble ups. 7 million feels too much here, unfortunately. But I don't think they're the rank outsiders, right? The group's not terrible. I don't think they're not going to get smashed 3 times. I don't think. I think like they'll give Czech Republic a challenge when they play them and stuff. The goalkeeper's really good. Again, you're not going to go him in this, but Georgi Mamadashvili was a player again I'm familiar with because my club was linked to him heavily before we bought Vicario last summer. Best for XG prevented in La Liga last year. Okay. Across all keepers in goal for Valencia. He's 4.5. You're not going to go there, I don't think. I highlight Otar Kabakadze, who's 4.5. Why am I highlighting him, Suj? Because every other Georgia defender is 4.0, so there's no reason to buy him. Georgie's Mikotwedzi will likely play up front. He is 5.0.
It's cheap.
So if you decide you want to, really force in De Bruyne, Foden, Bellingham and that kind of midfield all together and stuff, there's an enabler up front. But even at that price, I've really struggled to make a case for it.
I've really not needed... I mean, I've gone quite light in midfield, but I've still got a lot of attacking players in midfield. I've just not struggled for budget, so I don't really see the need to. But there might be people that do want to get some heavier hitting midfielders than I've got, sure.
I'll skip Portugal for a second. Jindrik Stanek will probably start in goal for Czechs. He's 4.0. You're not going Vladimir Sufal at 5, Suj, but I knew you'd ask. Thomas Souček is 6. Patrick Schick, who obviously was joint top scorer at the last Euros, is 7.0. I wouldn't be stunned if they finish bottom of this group, though. Actually.
Yeah, I've got no consideration for any of those. Say they were to randomly get through and they get a really good draw in the last 16, you can dip in and dip out, that kind of thing. But I don't see myself wanting anything.
And they start with the toughest one in Portugal, who I think have probably got the best squad in the tournament. I'd say what's great about Portugal is if you take a player out, nearly in every position, you're nearly replacing for similar quality.
Wow, okay.
Whether it's the best 11, Nico, is 2BC, TBC even. But I think as a squad, it's the best. Listen, if you lose Ronaldo, can you replace Ronaldo? No, but do they have forwards who can do a very good job in this team? Well, we saw Gonçalo Ramos get a hat-trick in the last major tournament, standing in for Ronaldo. But right across it, when you look at the likely kind of backup 11, if you will, you could make a case for all of them potentially being in this team. But despite all that, I think there's probably less to choose from here. Partly because of the pricing and partly because of the obvious nature of some of it. So Diogo Costa in goal is a great pick at 5.0. Despite him being 5.0, it's perfectly reasonable to go. João Cancelo is 6, Suj. I think Nuno Mendes will play left back. He's 5.0.
Okay.
That might be worth your million saving. But we know what Cancelo can be. Bruno Fernandes is 9. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Cristiano Ronaldo is 10. And that's also perfectly reasonable. If you are stuck in the mindset of thinking, well, Ronaldo was getting left out of the last tournament in Qatar, forget about it. He's back in the team and he'll be playing. And as a squad, they are extremely strong.
I only have 2 in at the moment, which is Cancelo and Bruno Fernandes.
Bruno Fernandes, yes.
I think I'm tempted with the keeper instead of Castells. That's very much a hedging situation because say I've gone tripled up with Germany, but then I also double up with Portugal. Then I really am in a blanket defence style strategy, which I don't mind. Like if you're going to go for it, go for it. And if I'm not going to pick an alternative third Portuguese player, then I may as well go with that and put my eggs in that basket. But I think Belgium's first 2 fixtures are a bit better. So where do I think I'm most likely to get the points? Probably Castiles, if I'm honest with you. But it's tight.
Portugal might be getting my money. I'm going to have a think about it.
Okay.
I mean, like, just generally for the tournament. Do you think
Do you want me to take over for you?
Exceptional.
You got some money you want to give to Portugal? I'll take it over next week.
No, just
give
lose,
me the cash.
Just lose it at the bookies instead. I think the winner of this tournament will be France or Portugal.
I agree with you.
Germany certainly should.
And I very heavily think France will actually win the tournament.
France and Portugal, by the way, if they both won their groups, would avoid each other till the final.
Wow.
But learn something here, kids, from previous Euros. Some of these teams will fudge this group stage. It always happens. Portugal 8 years ago were a great example of that. That said, Italy blitzed theirs in the last Euros and went on to win the competition, so it can go both ways. But the sheer manner of only 8 teams getting eliminated, the tournament for the big nations only really starts in the last 16.
Agreed.
And I think we should remember that, and a couple of them will underperform, I'm fairly certain. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of them is called England.
James, we're going to reveal our final drafts on Friday.
But it's still coming home. Yeah. Despite just ignore everything I just said.
Final drafts, Friday.
Yes, that's
Between now and then, what content do we have for the listeners?
So on Patreon, just to give that a bit of a plug for our intermediate patrons and above, me and Clayton are doing 3 nostalgic pods, the first of which is out today on 3 major tournaments that have taken place in Germany over the last 50 years, starting with that one 50 years ago in 1974 with the Dutch and total football, and some really interesting, Suj, political conversations of some of the smaller nations that qualified. You would have enjoyed this. Tomorrow we're doing a pod on Euro 1988, Van Basten's volley, the Republic of Ireland beating England and England's disaster. And then we're doing the 2006 World Cup, Zidane's headbutt, etc. And tomorrow, available to all of you, doing a podcast I'm recording tonight with Jack Toner, our Burnley correspondent, talk about what they're planning to do following the departure of Vincent Kompany. And we'll largely be focusing on that, what it means. Is it now a case of people just going for football philosophies rather than achievements, because this is one of the biggest clubs in the world, appointing a manager who just got relegated? And how do Burnley fans feel about it? Because I'm sure they acknowledge that you don't turn down the Bayern Munich job, but also they were loyal to him. It's caused a little bit of a sour taste. That'll be out tomorrow.
Lovely jubbly. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/Planet FPL, where you get all of that additional content. And it'll be pretty active over the Euros because we have patrons from all around Europe and the world. So you won't get charged in July because we're switching off the billing and it'll be free. You get access to a whole bunch of content then, but you do need to register before then to be able to get your free month. So make sure you head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL and support the show. Other than that, stay safe, look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Remember, play it your way. Cue music, please, man child.